Welcome, boys! Alright, we're going to be doing a headrest review in our 93 Corvette and a little story time with Hollywood, because we always do story time while we're vlogging and driving. So I can only talk about the headrest so much, so in stereotypical fashion, we'll do some story time first, headrest second. Now, one thing we're also going to do is, or I'm going to note rather, is by the time this video comes out, I'm filming it 2 days after Thanksgiving. It's going to be a while before it comes out, but it will still even be out, I believe, after the headrest review I did in the Camaro. And that one was pretty bad because I didn't realize that it chopped the top of my head off when I filmed it. So that's a bummer, but we learned our lesson, so this time we know to mount the camera upside down so you guys can see me a little better here. But this car is a little bit more unique compared to the other ones because the sun's shining in through my roof, and so hopefully the lighting's okay and everything. But I think I got it positioned where you can see me, and you should be able to hear me all right. But this car's got a lot more vibrating than the other ones, so hopefully you don't hear too much of the suspension and everything driving, and the roads and all that stuff. Plus, normally I film this in the city driving, and I'm down in Jefferson County filming this one. So we'll go ahead and cover most recent stuff, story time, the long sort of history of this car like we've done with the other ones, and then the headrest review. So, briefly, why are we even driving this thing or filming this thing down here? This video was originally not going to be... Okay, so originally, before the COOF, this video was going to be filmed along with the Camaro over the summer, but they canceled my Bloomington Gold Corvette show. That is in the end of May, or the end of June rather. That one's always at the end of June. I think they still had that one, but it was going to be indoors or something. It wasn't going to be back at the Indy 500, the racetrack, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And I was going to take the Camaro to that one, so we were going to have a bunch of bean footage of that, some maintenance-y type stuff with it. And then we were going to drive this one to the other Corvette show in September, and then we were going to do the headrest review and all that stuff then. Well, because everything got closed because of the COOF, that kind of threw a wrench in my my toolbox, as Sarah would say. And so what I ended up doing was, I was like, well, I guess we're not going to do any maintenance or anything on the Camaro and the Corvette. We're not even going to drive them in 2020. They're just going to sit, and then I'll just do all the other stuff. All right, so that was the game plan. So that was plan B. But then what happened is my grandpa recently passed, and since I had to come down here to Jefferson County to attend the wake and everything, where the Corvette and the Camaro live, the Corvette and the Camaro, they don't actually, you'll notice you rarely see them when I'm doing the other car videos. That's because I don't keep them up in the city. I keep them down in Jefferson County, where it's a little safer for them, so people stop crashing into them all the time and damaging them and all that good stuff. And I apologize, it's a cobblestone road I'm driving over, so it should get a little better now. But Mississippi Avenue in Crystal City has always been cobblestone, and it's always been kind of vibrating. So I don't know how well the mic picked it up, but that's what all that noise was. So, because my grandpa passed, I was like, well, that's going to give me, and so originally the plan was, I was like, okay, well, I'll come down, we'll drop Katie's car off, I'll take the Camaro back up north, and that way I can change the coolant, because it's been 5 years. So I went ahead and did that, changed the coolant. While I did that, I went ahead and did the headrest review on the Camaro. So then I was just going to take the Camaro down today and drop it off, and then that was going to be the end of that. The Corvette was still going to end up sitting on its ass, until next year, until 21. But then my aunt invited me over for Thanksgiving. I was just going to stay at the house. And I was like, okay, well, you know what? Now I can take the Camaro down, since that's all done, on Thanksgiving, and then do the old switcheroo again. So I dropped the Camaro off, washed it and everything, and then picked this dude up. Drove it up north, and that was mostly just to get the bad fuel out of it, because originally I planned on driving it over the summer to get all that old gas out of it. Well, I couldn't, because they canceled everything. But the gas has been in it for like over a year now. So the opportunity presented itself to grab it, burn all this fuel out, which is what I'm doing, driving it around and getting rid of all this old gas. And doing that, I was like, well, you know what? We can also do the headrest review on it because we already changed the coolant and everything, so there's not really any work that needs done. But I can do a headrest review. So that's what we're doing now. We're going to do the headrest review, then park it, put the little stuff in it that absorbs moisture, and then it's going to sit for the year until either, our overlords say, okay, you guys don't have to be afraid of the Koofy anymore, and then maybe this thing will come out in the summer of 21, or maybe it won't. We'll see. But now with that all out of the way, all the insider baseball's done, so we'll button this up, get rid of the Corvette, and sit all winter, and we'll be actually driving regular cars. Which I forgot how fast this thing is, and I think I may have mentioned that in the headrest review of the Camaro. I forgot just how fast the Camaro is. It's a manual, and you can just you barely give it gas, and you're like, you just drove 5 blocks about to hit somebody in the ass. And this thing's pretty damn similar to it, except it's an automatic. But it's a very light car and very aerodynamic. So, now we're getting into the long history of it. So Insider Baseball is over with, long history of it. So I bought this car in 2009, I think, or it might have been 10. And this would be my second Corvette. When I was 18, I bought my original Corvette, the 1984 Corvette, which was a very fun car. And I did rather enjoy it. Daily drove it for many years, from 03 to about 2009, I think, or maybe 2010. Whenever I bought this thing. So I bought this thing, and then this became the daily, and then the 84 became more of my daily, kind of a beater car. I mean, it was my daily, but it came more of the beater car, I guess. And then this one became more of the slightly nice weather, but still kind of a daily. But I never hardly ever went anywhere on my days off anyway. So this was mostly the days off. I went and drove around when I first got it. Because when I worked, I drove the cop car to work, so, that's what got all the miles on it. And then this thing sat, unless it was a day off or it was nice, and the gray Corvette was kind of the bad weather days. I ended up getting rid of that, and then I also had the Crossfire at the same time as this. So I had those 3 cars, got rid of the Crossfire, traded for the Camaro, and then this became the daily driver. When I only had 2 cars, the Camaro and this. This was the daily. So I put a lot of miles on it, going to and from work, going to and from school. And then the Camaro was kind of, I drove it a lot when I first got it. But, it was only nice weather. I drove this in the winter. So we'll cover winter driving. What is it like to daily drive a Corvette in the winter? Is that even a good idea? This thing handles great in the winter. I daily drove it for, rain, sleet, snow, and shine, slush, for years. An added benefit too is when it hails, because it's not metal, it doesn't dent, so that's kind of nice. You can drive it in a hailstorm. I do recommend them. I do recommend Corvettes for that. Now, if you get a big freaking golf ball size one or whatever that hits your windshield, it might crack the windshield and bust your windows out, but it ain't gonna dent your car any. So keep that in mind. I do recommend them if you have that kind of weather. Plus, they're really aerodynamic, so you can drive it through like tornadoes and stuff and hurricanes, and it usually doesn't tear it up too bad. It hasn't torn any of mine up, and I've driven it up to like 130 mile an hour winds. Mostly because the car was moving like 130 miles an hour, and wind was rushing over it. But surely it's been in some windy environments, and never blew over or blew away, so that was good. And daily driving in general then does not inclement weather. No, I enjoyed it. In fact, I mentioned in I think the Camaro video when I hit a bump. But I'll rehash it in this one. I was used to driving Corvettes my whole life, so I was used to how they drove, and I assume that's how every car drove and handled and everything like that. So, what you come to find out is when you start driving regular cars, is the regular cars, they don't handle all that well. Like this thing, you can take turns going like 1,000,000 miles an hour, and your tires aren't squealing or making weird noises, and you're not about to lose it. So, there's that. But also, this does ride like shit. Like, when you hit bumps and everything, you feel everything in the road. But, it's not designed to be a comfortable car. It's designed to be a nice road-handling sports car. And so, you kind of need to feel the road. So, I understand why they're like that. Most other people don't, I think, which is why they complain, like, oh, this car rides horribly. Well, it's not designed to ride all that great. But like I said, that was my base. That was my standard for years. And then when I got the Camaro, it rode pretty rough too, but it was like slightly less rough because it didn't have, this thing has leaf springs. And it has a fiberglass leaf spring on the front and the back that run transversely from the wheels. So it's a pretty stiff ride. So the Camaro is ever so slightly less stiff than this. So when I got that, I was like, oh man, this thing actually rides pretty good, but it still rides like shit. But to me, it was a big step up, right? Until I got the BMW. And then when I got that, I was like, oh my God, now I know what everyone's been talking about. Those sports cars and muscle cars do ride like shit. Because they're bumpy, and that thing just soaks over bumps like driving your couch. And then that was supposed to be my beater. So once I got the BMW, and I would only drive this on the days I wasn't driving that. So I had the 3 cars. At that point, the Camaro just became the only nice driving weather kind of car. The Corvette was mostly a daily still because I was working on getting the suspension and everything refreshed on the BMW. But once everything was good to go on the BMW, this became the spare car in case it broke or Katie's Neon broke. And then if Katie's Neon broke, she would drive the BMW, I would drive this. If my BMW broke, I would drive this, she would continue driving the Neon. And the BMW is pretty nice when it comes to like taking to the store and going grocery shopping and or taking it to drive-thru and stuff like that. It's a pretty nice car for that. And then once I got the Crown Vic, this thing became a drive around only to the Corvette show kind of thing. So now we have the Crown Vic, which is, and they're both really daily drivers. The Crown Vic and the BMW are both daily drivers, but I would say the Crown Vic's more of the bad weather daily beater kind of car because I paid like $1,500 for it, and if the uninsured fellows smash into that, parts are pretty cheap. Because they're not going to have insurance, and I may or may not want to use mine now that I have full coverage on all my cars. Speaking of insurance on this thing, I'll pay like $100, which is actually gone up because an uninsured lovely lady crashed into the side of this and did like $4,500 worth of damage, and she didn't have insurance, so I had to use mine. And it's a specialty like collector car insurance where you don't put a lot of miles on your car and it sits garage most of the time, kind of a deal. So that's the insurance I have on it. But it's fully insured for like 15 G's. So if anybody ever steals this thing or completely totals it, I get a $15,000 check. Not a big deal. Why are these people driving so slow in front of me? The speed limit's increased on this road down to like 60 miles an hour. But everyone's going to freaking drive 50 because they act like this is back in 2010. Whatever. We're on A highway, by the way. So that's the road we're on. They've upped the speed limit since I think even before I moved away from here, they've upped the speed limit. And they put this nice little turn lane here, which wasn't here, back in my day. It's here now, though. We used to have to just, like, freaking bust a mean right to get off A there. But this car could always handle it. Apparently now I get my own turn lane, which is pretty nice. Hey, you know what? While we're over here, I might take you by my old house when I was, like, a little kid. I was, like, itty-bitty. Real little, like, before age 10, living in a house that's coming up here. But I'm getting sidetracked. So driving the Vet, where were we? Riding like shit, insurance, handles well, take turns a million miles an hour. Okay, so we got all the other cars. We got the Crown Vic and everything. And since those are the daily driver, this literally isn't even the spare anymore. I mean, it can be a spare, but it mostly just goes to, here's my old street, Twin Oaks Drive. Let's see what the old house looks like. I actually had a dream not too long ago about this old house. I was like, that's kind of weird. I re-blacktop the road down here. And there is my old house. Wow, that color, though. Hey, let me spin you boys around.